After being abducted by a child killer and locked in a soundproof basement, a 13-year-old boy starts receiving calls on a disconnected phone from the killer's previous victims. Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today's film is a horror thriller from 2021 titled The Black Phone. The movie is set in 1978 in the town of Denver, Colorado. A Little League baseball game is being played and watched by the parents and children of the neighborhood. Finney Blake, a teen boy, is the pitcher and his sister Gwen is cheering him on from the stands. Finney shows off his skill by throwing 2 balls that get strikes, but on the last ball, the batter named Bruce Yamada manages to hit the ball. He hits a home run which causes his team to win the game. Finney looks dejected by the loss, but Bruce approaches him and commends his pitching skills after the game. Later, Bruce is riding his bike around the neighborhood. He appears to be well liked among his peers, as a couple of girls get excited when he greets them. A black van turns the corner in front of Bruce, causing him to come to a halt. Finney is eating breakfast with his father, Terrence, who is reading the newspaper. His father appears hungover, complaining about Finney and Gwen's noises in the kitchen. The siblings then walk to school together when Finney spots a missing persons poster of Bruce. Gwen doesn't think they'll find him alive and urges Finney to continue walking. At the school's yard, they join the other kids who are gathered to watch 2 boys fight. Moose, the school bully, taunts Robin Ariano, a smaller boy who ends up overpowering the bigger bully and beating him until he's bloodied. After the fight ends, the siblings continue walking while Gwen commends Robin for beating up the bully. She claims that Robin is the toughest kid in school, following the kidnapping of the previous toughest kid by the kidnapper known as the Grabber. A kid who wants to bully Finney approaches him after class. He hurries to hide in the bathroom. However, the bully pursues him with 2 other kids, forcing him to accept his fate. Suddenly, Robin enters the bathroom and warns the bullies not to bother Finney again unless they want to be beaten up. After the bullies leave, Robin encourages Finney to stand up for himself. It turns out that Finney has been tutoring Robin, and he asks Finney to come over to his house later to help him with his math. Meanwhile, Gwen is called to the principal's office to talk to 2 detectives, Wright and Miller, about the missing children. They question her because she told Bruce's sister that she had a dream about Bruce being kidnapped by a man with black balloons in a van. It turns out that the police found 2 black balloons at Bruce's kidnapping scene, so they want her to tell them more about her dream. They believe she is concealing information about how she knows this confidential detail, but she claims that her dreams are sometimes real. After school, Gwen says goodbye to Finney as she plans to stay over at her friend's house. Meanwhile, Finney cares for his intoxicated father that evening. He wakes up to Gwen being beaten by Terrence because the police came to his workplace to talk about her dreams. He screams that her dreams are just dreams, and that she will not begin to hallucinate like her mother did. Afterwards, Finney joins his sister to watch TV. Robin is walking through town when he notices the Grabber emerge from his van. Night falls and the neighborhood launches a search for missing Robin. Terrence receives a call about the disappearance, which upsets Finney, who asks Gwen to do her dream thing before they go to bed. Before going to bed, Gwen returns to her room and prays to Jesus to show her any clues to help find the missing children. In the morning, the detectives come over to question Gwen again. Now that Robin is gone, the bullies start beating up on Finney again. Gwen arrives to assist him by striking the bullies with a rock, causing one of them to bleed profusely. She gets kicked in the face before the 2 remaining bullies continue beating up Finney. Later that day, Finney gets partnered with his crush Donna in science class. She claims that the entire school is aware of what occurred that morning, and she thinks his close relationship with his sister is cool, which makes him happy. After school, Gwen informs Finney that she'll be staying at her friend's house tonight, and as Finney walks home, he encounters the Grabber's black van. The Grabber appears and pretends to drop his groceries, forcing Finney to assist him before grabbing Finney and smothering him with black balloons. Finney tries to fight back, but the Grabber sprays something in his mouth that makes him pass out. He is taken to an empty basement room and eventually wakes up. The Grabber, now wearing a demonic-looking mask, says he's not going to hurt him before he leaves Finney in the room alone. Finney attempts to open the locked door and discovers a toilet and a black phone on the wall. It's not working since the cable has been cut, so Finney decides to just go to sleep. Meanwhile, Terrence calls Gwen to inform her of Finney's disappearance as the police launch another missing person investigation. Finney wakes up and tries to use the phone again. The Grabber claims it hasn't worked in a long time but has heard it ring before, blaming static electricity. Finney tries to taunt the grabber, but he assures the teen that nobody can hear him scream. The grabber departs after refusing to feed Finney and implying that something went wrong with his plans. Later, Finney hears the phone ring, but when he answers it, there is no one on the other end, so he hangs up. Seconds later, it rings again, and this time a boy's voice tells him not to hang up again. The boy on the phone doesn't know his name, implying that it's the first memory they lose after dying, but Finney figures out that it's Bruce from the compliment he received after the baseball game. Bruce tells Finney that there's a loose tile near the toilet that he can dig into, but he didn't have enough time to escape. Finney finds the spot and starts digging while flushing the dirt down the toilet. Sometime later, the grabber brings Finney some food and a drink, assuring him that it's not poisoned. He leaves but doesn't lock the door, but when Finney is about to open it, the phone rings again. It's another victim named Billy who was a paperboy, and he warns Finney not to go upstairs because it's a trap. The grabber will be waiting for him with a belt to beat him up. Billy then points out a cable that could be pulled out from the wall and uses a bottle to tell Finney to use it on the window before ending the call. At first, Finney decides to walk upstairs but changes his mind before he could be seen by the grabber who's waiting for him. Finney returns to the room and pulls the cable out, trying to use it to climb the wall. Unfortunately, the window grate gives out under his weight and leaves him with no way to get back out. Meanwhile, Gwen has a dream about Bruce's life since birth and then sees Finney trying to escape out of a house. Later, she dreams of Billy's kidnapping and sees the grabber standing in front of a house. Gwen decides to talk to her father about her dreams, and he says he doesn't want Gwen to end up taking her own life as her mother did. However, when she says she had a dream about Finney's possible location, Terrence ends up taking her around the neighborhood to look for the house. The detectives get involved and visit the suspected house where they meet a man named Max. Max invites them inside, revealing that he's from out of town and he's staying there at his brother's house specifically to try and solve the missing children's case. Thinking that they got the wrong house, the detectives leave, though Finney is trapped in the basement right under their feet. Later, the grabber brings Finney more food. He says everything is going wrong and he's considering just releasing Finney, but then he asks what Finney's name is. Finney gives him a fake name, which makes him mad because he already knows Finney's name from the newspaper. The grabber leaves before the phone rings again, this time from a boy named Griffin. Griffin mentions that the grabber hasn't killed Finney because he won't fall for his trap, which is the first phase of the naughty boy game the grabber will play before killing his victims. Griffin says that the grabber is currently asleep while waiting for Finney, who should use the chance to escape. He shows Finney the wall where the combination for the door's lock is written. He tells Finney that the lock used to be his bike lock. Finney quietly makes his way to the door and manages to open the lock. However, the sound alerts the grabber's dog and wakes him up. He chases Finney, who starts yelling for help. Finney gets tackled and threatened with a knife to stop screaming before eventually being knocked out and returned to the basement. Sometime later, the phone rings again, and this time it's from Vance, the previous tough guy at school. He tells Finney that the grabber is planning to kill him today unless he can escape. At the same time, Gwen has another dream about Vance getting arrested and manages to hear his conversation with Finney. Vance points to the grabber's house in the dream and says right here, showing Gwen the exact location. Back in the basement, Finney is told that he should break the wall near the toilet to access a freezer's backside, which will lead him to the storage room. Finney does as instructed, breaking the wall with the toilet cover and opening the screws with a piece of metal from the toilet. He throws out the raw meats from inside the freezer before crawling in, but unfortunately, the freezer door won't open despite him kicking at it with all his might. Dejected, Finney returns to the basement and cries, fearing that it's his fate to die that day. Suddenly, the phone rings again and it's his friend Robin on the other side. He seems to still remember his name and his relationship with Finney, telling the boy to stop crying and start standing up for himself. Finney doubts his ability to defeat the grabber, but Robin encourages him by stating that he is just as tough as Robin. Robin tells him to pack the phone's receiver with some dirt and use it as a weapon against the grabber, even showing Finney the correct moves to successfully launch the attack. Finney bids his friend farewell, cuts the receiver and packs it with dirt, conceals any evidence of his escape trials, sets up a trap, and waits for the grabber. While this is going on, the grabber is in town getting supplies to kill Finney later. Outside, Gwen rides on her bike in search of the house that she saw in her dream. She doesn't seem to be able to find it until she sees the ghosts of the dead boys in front of her, which scares her and causes her to fall. She realizes that she's standing outside of the house, its details exactly like how she dreamt it. Gwen then calls the detective's number and informs him about the house, prompting the police to go there and investigate. While this is happening, Max finally realizes that his brother is the grabber and decides to check the basement only to find Finney there. Seconds later, Max gets killed by an axe to the head by his brother before he can help Finney. The grabber blames Finney for making him kill Max and he goes after the boy, who activates his trap. He trips the grabber with the cable, causing the grabber to fall into the hidden hole and break his ankle. Finney starts to beat him up with the phone receiver, but he manages to grab Finney during one of his swings. Finney takes off the grabber's mask, causing him to freak out, allowing Finney to land his final blows. As he chokes the grabber with the phone's cable, the phone starts to ring. Finney puts the receiver to the grabber's ear and lets him hear the voices of the boys he murdered, right before he himself gets killed by Finney. With his kidnapper dead, Finney takes a steak from the freezer to distract the dog before he finally leaves the basement. Meanwhile, the detectives think that the house is empty until an officer points out that there's a basement. They head downstairs to find mounds of dirt and determine that it's where the grabber buries his victims, figuring that he must have kept them hostage somewhere else. Gwen is waiting for the detectives outside when she sees her brother emerging from the house across the street. She runs to hug Finney while the police rush to enter the other house. It turns out that the grabber owns 2 houses, one of them is kept empty and used for the burials. While the kids wait in the ambulance, Terrence arrives at the scene and breaks down in tears, hugging Finney and apologizing for his awful treatment of his children. The movie ends with Finney returning to school after his recovery as a legend with a brand new reputation and more confidence than ever before. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more videos.